My name is Eleanor Ward, 42 years old, Senior Systems Analyst at Brixton Tech in downtown Chicago. For 10 years, I've been the one people call when a deployment collapses or a server freezes at 2:00 a.m. I don't panic, I fix things. That's what I do. I keep the system running, quietly, while others get the credit. That Friday morning began like hundreds before it: cold coffee, blue screens, and the faint hum of the HVAC filling the open office. Then I saw it: a small brown box sitting in the center of my desk. A gold sticker on top reading, "Employee Recognition Gift." For a second, I almost smiled. 10 years. I'd missed birthdays, holidays, one of my daughter's school plays, all for deadlines that moved faster than the seasons. Maybe someone had finally noticed. I peeled back the tape carefully, not wanting to ruin whatever small gesture waited inside. Beneath the packing paper sat a bottle of Whiskey Crooked Label, seal already peeling, a brand I'd never heard of. The card on top wasn't handwritten, it was printed in block Arial, bold at the top. "Thanks for your dedication, Eleanor." My name was wrong. The laughter from a nearby cubicle cut through the silence, sharp and careless. I turned the bottle in my hands. The glass caught the fluorescent light, warping my reflection. I imagined Greg, my manager, approving the shipment with a casual click, never even reading the name. The liquid inside swayed, a cheap amber. At home that evening, I set the bottle on my kitchen table and stared at it for a long time. My hands were steady, but my stomach ached like I'd swallowed the glass itself. 10 years of showing up early, staying late, cleaning up other people's mistakes, all condensed into $20 and a misspelled label. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't throw it away. I just left it there under the soft kitchen light, the card half tucked beneath it, and thought about how easily loyalty turns invisible once it's no longer convenient. When I finally stood up, I knew I wouldn't stay quiet forever. The next morning, the bottle was still on my table, catching a slice of pale winter light. I hadn't moved it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. Instead, I sat with my laptop, typing the barcode from the label into a search engine. Within seconds, the screen filled with results: the same whiskey, sold in bulk, $21.99 a bottle. Scrolling deeper, I found something else: the purchase order number printed on the packing slip. I recognized the budget code: Employee Recognition Account 402B. I'd seen it before, buried in quarterly expense reports when I helped reconcile vendor charges. It wasn't meant for cheap liquor. It was reserved for milestone awards, bonuses, and team celebrations. I opened an old spreadsheet from last spring. The same account had funded Greg's leadership offsite at a golf resort in Wisconsin. He'd called it a strategy retreat, but the photos told another story: 9 holes, craft beer, and matching polo shirts. The same man who told us budget's tight every time we asked for upgraded laptops had managed to turn recognition funds into his weekend playground. My eyes drifted back to the bottle. $22, 10 years. The ratio sat in my chest like a formula I'd finally solved. I thought of the overtime hours that disappeared into the system because the tracking tool glitched, the canceled holiday bonuses, the way Greg praised team resilience whenever we covered for missing resources. The realization didn't come with anger. It came with quiet precision, like aligning 2 columns that suddenly balanced. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a lazy oversight or a forgotten signature. It was math deliberate subtraction. Every next quarter maybe had a number behind it, and every number had a name. Mine just happened to be spelled wrong. When I closed the laptop, I caught my reflection in the dark screen, tired but steady. The bottle still sat where I'd left it, an ugly trophy for loyalty. I reached out, straightened the crooked label, and whispered to no one. I see it now. Then I started thinking about what I was going to do next. By Sunday evening, the snow had started to fall, thin and soundless against my kitchen window. The bottle was back in its box, the label smoothed, the card placed neatly inside. I'd slipped the packing slip beneath it, proof of what it cost. What I cost? Tomorrow. Brixton Tech would hold its quarterly town hall. streamed live from the top floor. The CEO, the board, all of them would be there talking about growth and employee value. I decided that's where the bottle belonged. I didn't write a note or rehearse a speech. I wasn't looking for an apology. I just wanted them to see, for 10 years, I'd learned that people like Greg didn't hear words, they noticed optics. A clean suit, a firm nod, a woman standing when she wasn't supposed to. I placed the box inside my tote, between my laptop and an old folder of system diagrams. It felt heavier than it should, though the glass inside barely weighed a pound. I sat back down at the table and breathed slowly, counting each inhale. My father used to say, "Dignity isn't noise. Ellie, it's what you keep when you've lost everything else." He'd worked the night shift at a steel plant for 20 years, never once late, never once thanked. When he died, his employer sent a printed condolence card that spelled our last name wrong. I'd forgotten that until now. Outside, a bus rumbled past, its windows fogged with strangers heading home. I watched the taillights fade into the white. I thought about Greg's easy grin, the way he always said team when he meant me. I thought about how long I'd mistaken endurance for loyalty. The clock on the stove ticked past midnight. I stood, brushed off my coat, and laid out the box by the door, ready for morning. My hands didn't tremble. They hadn't since I made up my mind. Tomorrow, I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't accuse or explain. I would simply hand them the truth and let the silence do the rest. The next morning, the train into downtown felt unusually still. People stared at their phones, heads bowed, the way they do before bad weather. I sat with the box on my lap, gloved hands resting on it as if it were fragile. Though I knew it wasn't. Brixton's lobby smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. HR interns were handing out name tags near the elevator. The big conference room upstairs had been transformed for the town hall rows of folding chairs, screens glowing the company's logo in soft blue. People are our greatest asset. The words scrolled across every slide as if repetition could make them true. I took a seat near the back. Greg sat 3 rows ahead, leaning toward a colleague, whispering something that made him grin. When he turned slightly, our eyes met. He lifted his chin in a mock greeting, the kind that said, "Stay in your lane." I looked away. Alan Shore, the CEO, stepped to the podium with practiced confidence. At Brixton, we believe in recognition, integrity, and growth. He began. His voice was smooth, his tie perfectly straight. Around me, people nodded in rhythm, polite, detached. I waited. When the Q&A began, the moderator held up a microphone and asked, "Any questions?" My hand rose before I even thought about it. Chairs shifted as heads turned. The microphone passed down the aisle, warm from other hands. I stood, feeling the weight of every quiet year behind me. "I've been here 10 years, I said evenly. "This is what my boss sent me as recognition." I stepped forward, walking down the aisle. Greg's smile faltered. I placed the box in the CEO's assistant's hands, neat, centered, the gold sticker still intact. Alan looked at it, then at me. His smile froze mid-performance. The room went still. Not the kind of silence filled with respect, the kind filled with realization. You could hear the hum of the HVAC, the click of a camera shutter, the small sound of someone swallowing hard. I didn't say another word. I just turned and walked back to my seat, the air sharp and heavy behind me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence of my apartment felt too clean, too empty, as if the air itself were waiting for something to happen. The image of the CEO's frozen smile replayed in my mind like a paused video, that flicker of awareness before the mask slipped back on. I opened my laptop, habit more than plan. The finance portal still saved my credentials from the last time I'd assisted with budget reconciliations. I typed in the recognition account code 402B and scrolled through the entries. There it was, Innovative Recognition Solutions, LLC, the vendor name on my packing slip. The invoices were bloated, premium whiskey gift set, executive plaque set, employee milestone package, each marked between $300 and $500. Every one of them signed by Greg. I leaned closer, following the pattern month by month. The totals didn't match the number of employees listed, hundreds of dollars disappearing under fulfillment fees and custom packaging. A shell game played in plain sight. A ping lit up on my screen. Maya Chen is online. She was one of the junior analysts I'd mentored during onboarding. Sharp, kind, and too honest for her own good. I hesitated, then sent a message. Ever notice weird charges under recognition funds? A few minutes later, she replied, all the time. I once asked Greg about it. He said it's vendor markup. We spent the next hour comparing screenshots, tracing serial numbers. Maya found a duplicate vendor address linked to an apartment in Evanston. Greg's cousin lived there. She knew because she'd seen his name tagged in one of Greg's golf weekend photos. When I leaned back, the apartment felt colder. The fear that had hovered since the town hall was gone, replaced by something steadier. A calm that comes when the pieces start to fit. I created a new folder on my desktop. Recognition budget. Review. Inside it, I saved every file, every thread, every email. I didn't know yet where it would lead, only that I was finally following the line backward, pulling until something broke. The meeting invite appeared in my inbox on Tuesday morning. Quick sync, recognition program. No sender name. Just a calendar placeholder dropped into the middle of my schedule. Attendance marked mandatory. I stared at it for a long time before clicking accept. When I walked into the conference room, the air felt too cold, recycled through vents that never quite worked right. 3 people sat waiting. Greg. Of course late, but confident, his tie loosened like he'd just stepped out of a golf ad. Beside him sat a woman I recognized from compliance trainings, Dana Ruiz, quiet, sharp-eyed, across from her. A finance manager shuffled a stack of invoices. Let's keep this quick, Greg said, flashing that grin he used whenever he thought charm was currency. This about the little whiskey misunderstanding. Dana didn't answer. She simply opened her folder and slid a few sheets across the table. These are invoices from Innovative Recognition Solutions, she said evenly. Premium whiskey gift sets $450 each. Signed and approved by you. Greg laughed too loudly. Come on, it's just markup. Shipping, taxes, vendor fees. It all adds up. We don't exactly control UPS. Right? The finance manager tapped a pen against one page. The employee listed here received a bottle retailing at $22. He looked at me briefly, then back to Greg. That discrepancy is not a shipping issue. Greg's smile twitched. He straightened his cufflinks, eyes darting to me for the first time. Maybe a fulfillment mix-up. We'll get it sorted. Dana placed my packing slip on top of the pile. The SKU number matched. She spoke softly, but every word landed like a gavel. This came directly from the vendor. The same case of discount bottles was billed as premium. No one spoke after that. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the space, louder than any argument. I sat still, hands folded on the table, letting the silence do what words couldn't. Across from me, Greg's grin faltered entirely. For the first time in 10 years, he didn't look untouchable. He just looked small. The following week, Greg stopped pretending. His greetings vanished, replaced by clipped emails marked urgent. My workload doubled. Overnight documentation updates, weekend bug reports. Client calls that used to rotate across the team now landed squarely in my inbox. When I asked about priorities, he replied, "If you can't handle the pace, Eleanor, maybe it's time we reevaluate your fit." 2 days later, HR summoned me for a development discussion. A thin folder waited on the table. Performance improvement plan. It read like fiction failure to align with leadership tone, resistance to feedback, collaboration concerns. Not a single missed deadline. Not a single note about quality. Just words vague enough to stick anywhere. When I walked out, Greg was waiting by the elevators. He smiled, the kind of smile that carried warning more than warmth. Careful. Eleanor. Bridges burn both ways. That night, I sat at my desk long after my daughter had gone to bed. The folder lay open beside my laptop, each sentence tighter than the last. I opened the compliance portal, the one buried deep in the company intranet, and began a new submission, anonymous report vendor misuse of funds. I attached every invoice, screenshot, and message I'd collected, the paper trail that now filled an entire folder named Proof. When I hit send, a message appeared. Your case number is 221-04-01. I stared at the number until it burned into my mind. I didn't feel relief, only a steady calm. The next morning, Maya stopped by my cubicle with 2 coffees. You know HR will side with him. Right, she whispered. I met her eyes. Then the truth will have to outrun their loyalty. She didn't smile, but she stayed beside me for a minute, the sound of keyboards filling the space between us. Outside, snow pressed against the window, muffling the city's noise. Inside, the silence was sharper. I'd chosen my ground, and I wasn't moving. 3 weeks later, an emergency town hall appeared on everyone's calendar with no agenda listed. The subject line was a single word, mandatory. The air inside the office felt different that morning, tense, charged, like the pause before thunder. I took my usual seat in the back row. Alan Shore stood at the front, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. His tone was sharper than I'd ever heard. Some of you may have noticed irregularities in our employee recognition program, he began. An internal audit has uncovered misuse of funds. Those responsible are no longer with the company. The room was silent. No slides, no applause line, just the hum of the projector and the weight of every word. Greg's chair 2 rows ahead was empty. By noon, rumors had crystallized into facts. His badge failed at the turnstile twice. He'd pounded on the glass before security arrived. By the time I went downstairs for lunch, his office door was locked, the nameplate gone. Someone whispered near the break room that the audit traced over $200,000 misused across 5 years' phantom invoices, inflated gift sets, a shell LLC registered under his cousin's name in Evanston. HR's director and the procurement manager were escorted out later that same day. The hallways buzzed with disbelief, gossip, and a hint of fear. I passed by Greg's office before heading home. The blinds were half closed, the desk cleared, one lone coffee mug turned on its side. For years, that office had been the bottleneck of every budget delay, every denied bonus. Now it was just an empty room, echoing with its own silence. People said the investigation had started with a bottle of whiskey that someone had handed it to the CEO during the last town hall. They didn't say my name, but I saw the way eyes flicked toward me when the story came up. I didn't confirm it. I didn't need to. That night, as I left the building, the city wind pressed cold against my face. I didn't feel triumphant, just still. The kind of still that comes when a storm finally spins itself. 2 days after Greg's dismissal, an email from the executive office appeared in my inbox. Meeting request A, Shore. No subject, no notes. Just a time. 10 Sundaras a.m. Top floor. I'd never been up there before. The elevator doors opened to quiet carpeting and a skyline view that made the city look smaller than it ever should. Alan Shore stood by the window, his jacket draped over a chair. He gestured for me to sit. I owe you an apology, he began. His voice carried less polish than usual, the words deliberate, careful, for the oversight, for the system that let it happen, and for what you had to do to make us see it. He slid an envelope across the desk. Inside were papers, promotion to senior operations manager, retention bonus, back pay. This is long overdue. I looked at the offer for a moment before closing the folder. I don't want a plaque, I said, or a title. I want the team repaid. Every missed bonus, every canceled award, they earned those. Alan was silent for a few seconds, eyes narrowed in thought. Then he nodded once. Done. He walked to the door and called in someone from finance. "Make it right," he told her. "Retroactive payments, transparency from now on." When he turned back to me, there was something almost human in his face. Exhaustion. Maybe, or respect. You could have walked away. Ms. Ward. Most people would have. I smiled faintly. I almost did. That week, new policy memos went out: vendor audits, public expense logs, mandatory compliance sign-offs for all leadership. The office, once heavy with rumor, felt lighter. People stopped whispering when I passed by. Some nodded, quietly thankful. Maya dropped a note on my desk that Friday, just one line. "They paid us. All of it. Thank you." I pinned it beside my monitor. No certificate, no frame. Just a reminder that for the first time in years, the numbers finally added up to something that made sense. 3 months passed before I made my decision. The office had changed: new leadership, open-door meetings, and numbers posted on shared screens for everyone to see. For the first time in years, people smiled in the hallways without looking over their shoulders. My name had quietly drifted out of the spotlight, and I preferred it that way. One gray afternoon in early February, I typed out my resignation letter. No speeches, no drama, just a simple note thanking Brixton for the years and the lessons. HR replied with a templated message and an optional exit interview. I declined. I'd said everything that needed saying without words months ago. Before leaving, I stopped by the small office mailroom. In my hands was a carefully wrapped package, sealed with plain tape and labeled for delivery to Alan Shore's office. Inside, nestled in dark tissue paper, lay a top-shelf bottle of whiskey smooth glass, perfectly aligned label, the kind that cost more than Greg had ever stolen in a single invoice. Beneath it, a handwritten note on crisp stationery, for the people who actually earned it. I left it with the shipping clerk, signed the form, and didn't look back. By 5 o'clock, my desk was empty. The few personal things I owned fit neatly into one bag: a framed photo of my daughter, a fountain pen, and the note Maya had written. They paid us. All of it. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, wanting to feel every step of leaving. Outside, Chicago greeted me with its usual winter indifference. The wind pressed sharp against my cheeks, but the air felt cleaner than it had in years. I pulled my scarf tighter and started walking toward the train. My breath rose in thin clouds, dissolving into the gray. For the first time in a decade, I didn't belong to a company, a department, or a line item in someone else's spreadsheet. I just belonged to myself. And that, I realized, was the only recognition that had ever really mattered.